if I wasn't in school, I was with my dad working. It was basically like this 80 pound bags of concrete, take them over there. I remember thinking when she wrote me that check, I thought, well, this is easy. I love being a salesman. I just go over to people's house and they write me checks. This is great. I can do this. And so a salesman was born. Very quickly, my dad was like, well, looks like you got it under control. I'm going to retire. My granddad used to say he's not afraid of hard work. He'll sleep right beside of it.
Caleb.
Hello.
Roth, what's up?
I'm here, man. I'm just taking in this space. I'm loving what you've got going on here.
Thank you, man. Sweaty goals. We just completed a round of sweaty goals. This is my own little personal podcast where I just bring people together and talk about life and talk about what are we doing? What are we doing here? Like, we're in this human experience. What are we doing next? And I think it's, for me anyway, I try to use this as more of an intention setting exercise. Like, spend time. We did a cold plunge. Mm-hmm. We did a good workout. We did some breath work and biocharger. Now we're podcasting and we'll do breakfast.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I think I'm at a place in life where it seems like everything is like in Star Wars when they go into light speed and the stars start just becoming a blur. I feel like life is becoming, like, the speed of life is much faster at where I am at currently than it used to be. And so I'm trying to go 100% or 100,000% in all directions and trying to be very intentional with each one. And does your life ever feel like that?
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, and you are accelerating. You just had another baby.
Yeah. Very excited. Yeah. I got a 5-day-old son.
That's just insane. I mean, I would suspect that the more kids you have, the faster that life accelerates.
I think so. He's our 5th child. We've got him from almost 15 to 5 days old and everywhere in between. And so I think a lot of people look forward to maybe being empty nesters by 40, and I'll be 37 this year, and I'm just looking forward to my kids. I think because I'm focusing on my kids. A lot of people focus on a lot more outward stuff. And I do that as well, but I do focus a lot on my kids, and it keeps me into them and really focused on producing the next generation. And I think it's really cool that I'll be 37, 47, 57, almost 60 and have 20-year-old,
Wow.
Because I think that'll just keep me dialed in, and maybe a different way than I would be dialed in with no kids. But for me, I think that's the path.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you. I think about fatherhood a lot, and I think about what does it mean to be a good father. But then I also have this thing that I'm starting to notice where I don't think I'm the one supposed to give my son those lessons. And I'm being really selective about how I teach my sons, because you know how they when they're a teenager, they look at you differently, right?
Well, yeah, I guess some lessons come much easier from someone else.
Yeah.
Right. When I was growing up, when I was a kid, I always thought that my dad never spent time with me. He was always too busy working. But as I got older and I look back, I realized I spent a ton of time with my dad. I grew up just like a blue collar family. My family owned a fence company, and building fences in Tennessee, if anybody's ever done it, it's extremely hard work. Like, you're basically my childhood from, if I wasn't in school, I was with my dad working. And it was basically like this 80 pound bags of concrete, take them over there. Or this pile of fence posts, there needs to be one in every hole. Or these, 2,000 fence pickets, take them all out there. And we're going to be here for the next 3 days. So buckle up, right? And that was just life. That was normal. It was no big deal. And I remember it being really hard. But my dad taught me a few lessons, and I've sort of extracted these and put them into my business now and like the ideology I have. But one was, he taught me, and I'm going to probably get these out of order, but one was he taught me not to dread anything. He said, if you dread anything, it just makes it way harder. And two, if we're going to do something, we're going to do it right. And I'll go on, but he taught me some lessons. And I remember like grown men crying and quitting. I remember grown men going, what do you mean? we're not going to eat lunch. My dad used to have a joke, I'd say, I'm hungry. He'd say, what's that? Or when are we going to have lunch? He'd say, what's that? He just worked hard. That's the way he was raised. And he never abused me, and I wasn't like slave labor. But I remember when I'd be working out with all these grown men. And at the end of the day, my dad would look at me and he'd say, you work like a man today. And that was like, he might as well put a crown on my head. and so as I, reflected back all the stuff that was really hard growing up that I thought, man, we've got it so bad. We have to do all this hard work. I look at it now and I'm like, I can do anything. I'm not afraid of any challenge. And that's served me well in business. And so back to fatherhood, we didn't have a lot of things when we were kids. We were just, out in the field working, doing our thing, come home at night. We worked on weekends. It just was the way it was. And so now I'm in a different financial position, different home life. My wife stays at home. My mom worked. And so I've got to find a way to raise my kids to be tough and go through challenges. But they're not going to have the opportunity to go through like
they're not getting the same.
They're not getting that same obstacles, right? So how do we create that toughness and mental fortitude and discipline and grit without going through hard stuff? And so I'm just kind of spending my time with my kids. I've created little monsters at my house. Like this morning, I had to get up at 3:50 to get here by 6. And so at basically 3:59, I've got 2 little monsters saying, "Hey Dad, are we going to work out?" They're wanting, normally at 5 a.m. we're in the gym in the morning. And so I'm finding little ways to do it. But I'm looking for more all the time.
Yeah. I think we do have to create those obstacles in our own homes. Like naturally, if you can make it natural, I had this thing happen a couple of years ago. I was at our house in Costa Rica, and we have this door to where we store everything. And you put the key in the lock and try to open the door. It's like one of those things you got to maneuver with your fingers and try to turn it the right direction before it opens, and it'll eventually open, but you have to work at it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked the boys to go put something in the storage, and I knew the lock was all, the way it was. And of course they come right back to me and said, we can't figure it out. I can't try. And they're literally for like 10 minutes. And they finally got it. I said, the reason I went through this exercise with you is, what if there was an urgent matter and you had to have the discipline to get this open and figure out, no other help, and it was just you? How would you navigate that? Instead of like always running to me to get all the answers, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of like our employees are the same way, right? If you're in the office, they're always going to come to us with a question. But if you're not there, what do? They figure it out without you. But what we do is sitting in the office, we have our door open and they come in and we want to solve all of their problems. But it's really not that helpful for us or even our kids to solve their problems, right?
Yeah. My son, my oldest son, when he was probably 4 or 5 years old, he would be reading. My kids are just voracious readers. And he's reading, like when he's first learning to read, maybe he was 4. My wife taught him to read really young. And he would, if he was unsure of a word, he would read and then he would look at you, read and then look at you. And he was looking for confirmation that he was doing something right. And we just physically had to break, not physically, but we had to break him of that habit. Like, do not look at us. You know what the word is, read it. Don't look at us. And now he reads no problem. But I remember that as a kid. And then the other day in my conference room, I had kind of like a group, not my whole executive team, but there were 3 or 4 of us in there. And someone presented something for like kind of the whole team to look at. But I remember out of the corner of my eye, as soon as it got laid out on the table for everyone to see, someone in the room immediately looked at me to see what my response was. And I noticed it, and I didn't really process it at that time. I just kind of put it away on the toolbox. And this morning driving over here, I was thinking about that. And I was thinking, that's not the kind of person I need leading. They're not leading. They're looking to me. So and not that I'm going to fire that person, but just like with my son, I need to push them to, hey, don't look at me. What do you think? Because you're here, because your opinion's important. And if you can't give me that opinion or have a good feedback on this, maybe there's something different.
Well,
we need to be doing.
I mean, I think what you're talking about is like trusting yourself,
Mhm.
like trusting your own internal guide to know that this is the way, that, I mean, part of having faith is also having faith in yourself
Mhm.
and knowing that you are going the right direction. But I mean, not everyone, and I've been in places when I'm living in scarcity mode where am I doing the right thing? And like questioning myself and how scary that is. And of course, 80% of the world is living in some level of fear and scarcity. And that's why they're looking outside for all the guidance and be told in an Instagram post on what they're supposed to be doing. Right.
Yeah. I've always operated kind of off the gut and just split second decision making, because the decision was there. It was, you hit me with something, I'm going to immediately respond, usually. Or in business as I'm navigating things. I don't want to sound like I'm like a unhinged off the cuff person, but generally, as I make decisions, I just make them because I know. And sometimes I get challenged on that. And usually I don't know why I'm making this decision until I get challenged. And then I have to really go through a process of thinking about it. And then I go, oh, well, the reason I made this decision is because of this factor, and this factor. And then looking out long-term, these are the outcomes we're looking for, and knowing that information, this was the right decision. And it's tough, not tough. It's tough to explain that to people. But it's gut, it's like the gut knows, and you don't even know how it knows. But I heard Jeff Bezos, that someone asked him, how did you make all the decisions in your business to grow Amazon? And I think he said like 95 or 98% were all gut decisions. He just made them off the cuff like that. And so I think there's something to that, getting you to follow that, have faith that you, maybe you're worthy to make a call.
Yeah. Now, when did you make the decision? Like if you grew up in the family of building fences, and did you know that that's what you're going to continue to do?
Yeah. So I turned 18 and I told my dad, I said, hey, I want to come to work for you. I don't think I was quite 18. I graduated high school at 17. When I graduated, I said, I want to go to work for you. And he said, nope, you got to go work for somebody else. And I said, okay, fine. I had no choice. Right. So I went to work building commercial ductwork in a sheet metal shop and installing it. And so it's not like regular heating and cooling. It was like, like Mission Impossible, he's climbing through the ductwork. It's like that kind of big ductwork. And like we would hang it 50 feet in the air, like big industrial stuff. And so we would build it and install it. And I got to work for a guy who was probably, at the time, he was in his 60s, and he was like a 120-pound guy, and he was just 100 miles an hour. And he was exactly like my dad, just hard charging, go-getter. And I worked for him, I guess, for, I don't know, maybe 6 months, 8 months. I made $40 a day doing hard labor. It was great. And then I went back to work for my dad, and he said, well, I'm going to see if you can sell, And so he put me in a truck and gave me a map book, back when you had to look in the back of the book, and, back when we knew where all the streets were, and without a GPS. And I went to my first job site, or quote, and it was this old lady in Murfreesboro. And my dad had this book of all the fences and all the prices, and she wanted something like really fancy that wasn't in the book. And so I called my dad on the phone and I said, I don't know what to do. This lady wants this kind of fence. It's not in the book. I don't have a price. And he said, well, hang on a minute. And he made me a price. And I remember it was $19.50 a foot, which now won't buy you anything. But at that time, it was more expensive than anything that we could offer. And this old lady said, okay, I'll take it. She signed up. She wrote me a check for the full amount of money, paid me up front, and said, I'll see you when you get here to build it. Luckily, we were a great company. We could handle it. We had great installers, and we pulled it off with no problems. But I remember thinking, when she wrote me that check, I thought, well, this is easy. I love being a salesman. I just go over to people's house and they write me checks. This is great. I can do this. And so a salesman was born. Mm. And so I worked in the family business, basically doing sales, operations, running crews, ordering materials, answering calls, whatever, basically doing everything. And very quickly, my dad was like, well, looks like you got it under control. I'm going to retire. And so he retired. sort of semi-retired. Basically, he equivalent of going and playing golf during the days, and then every once in a while he would come in and shake things up a little bit. And we did that for years. And I became a fireman part-time during this period because I was wanting to earn more money, and that I didn't really like that. There was fire service is great, but it just wasn't for me. It was more of a people thing. I loved the job, but there was a lot of infidelity where I was working. You know, you'd see things going on with people, and I thought, well, I don't need that in my life. So I got out of the fire service, and I kept looking for something new. And by the time 26 rolls around, I'm like desperately looking. I'm burnt out of the fence business. It was tough. You know, a lot of the crews, what a lot of people don't know, I guess it's the same with all industries. But in Nashville, like all the fence builders were using the same labor pool basically. And they unionized, more or less they unionized right about the time of the Great Recession, I guess. And so basically our prices went down and our labor went up, and it got really tough and tight in home services space for a bit. And then I just kind of got burned out at that time, was really looking for something. I remember I wanted to sell roofs. I wanted to put in, what's it called? Reverse osmosis systems. I was looking for anything to just find a new business, go to work for somebody, earn more money. And by this time I've got young kid, you know, at least one young child. I got a house, I got a wife. And then this voice came to me. I think it's the voice of God that said, you're going to stay in fences. And the first thing I thought was, no, I'm not. I am getting out of the fence business far away as I can. And then I don't know, something, I think I got on YouTube, and this was like 2012. And I saw you could stain fences and you could make money doing it. And there was a place in Texas you could go down, people that made stain, and they would show you how to use it. So I went down and learned how to use it. Then I came back to Nashville, and I did that with my last $500. And it was during like December 5th, 2012. And so I went down there, last $500. And anybody who's in home services knows that the wintertime is very slow, especially for fence builders. It's wet, it's rainy. People aren't spending the money on fencing usually in January, February. So it was kind of a risky move for me. But I went down and never looked back. And then I came back, bought some used equipment. I started, when I would quote fence jobs, I would say, hey, you need to get it stained too. It's not finished, or it's not complete until it's finished, I would tell people.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that, and I knew all the other fence guys in town. So my stain company had a different name than our fence company. So I was working as the subcontractor for the fence company. And then I was picking up work with other fence companies too. And eventually it just, it took off. And I guess I really hung around, I feel like, the family fence business longer than I should have. And it was out of guilt. I didn't want to leave my family high and dry because I ran everything, you know. And so I left later than I should have. But when I left, in the family business, we didn't know how to scale business. So I guess once I went out on my own, it was just like burn the ships and full speed ahead, just learn everything I can. And I guess you could say, and the rest is history, but that business has carried us through.
And that's seal and stain experts.
Yeah. So it's stain and seal experts is what we started out with. We were staining fences and decks in Middle Tennessee. We had not quite as good a name early on. We changed it about 2015 to Stain and Seal Experts. And somewhere along the way, the stains we were using, we kept having problems with them. And I had some really good friends that were manufacturing the stain. At least I thought. I was really good friends with the reps and the ownership of the business. And their stain kept giving me problems. I would basically have to go back to people's houses and take a wire brush to their deck to scrub all the old stain it was like bubbling up or whatever off of their deck, and then recoat it. And once I did that, it would fix the problem, but it didn't fix the problem of it happening in the first place, you know? So I called the manufacturer and I said, hey, this is happening a lot. I remember telling them they had a warranty. They would basically pay you or give you free product to shut you up, is what I found out later. But what I realized, I told them, you know, I don't want money. I don't want free product. I just want to know what I'm doing wrong so I can fix it. And I remember they just basically told me to pound sand. And at that point I said, well, if I'm going to buy cheap, bad stain, cheap's probably not a good word. If I'm going to buy bad stain, I'll make my own bad stain. What's the worst thing that could happen? At least I'll make more money, right? And so I just went into this mad scientist mode in my basement at night with milk frothers, like trying to make miniature versions of stain and figuring it out. Lots of trial and error. And eventually we finally found a stain formula that we liked. We kept tweaking it. And I remember one day I was out on a job site, was owner operator. I had crews, but I would still come and kind of had to ramrod things. And I remember I told the guys, I said, y'all stain the fence out front. I'll get on the deck in the back. And when you get finished, I'll probably be done and we'll get out of here. And I started staining this deck and I'm staining. So one of the problems with a lot of stains is if you stain the deck and then you realize you missed a spot and you walk across the deck, you got to start over. You got to completely redo everything. So I started staining this deck board and I got about 8 feet down and I looked back and the stain had already dried. And I thought, oh, that's handy. How nice is that? And so I made mental note of that, stained the whole deck. And by the time we were done, the deck was dry. You could walk on it. You could put the furniture back on it. But we didn't get like drip marks, lap marks, run marks, overlapping marks like you see with a lot of stains. And our stain didn't have any smell because we made it without solvent. So it was a lot safer stain. And so I remember that was the pivotal moment where I said, that's it. It's done. Don't touch it. We've got our formula. And our formula hasn't changed, but now we sell stain all over the country, UK, Canada. We got a line of lumber that we stain with the product. And so the business has grown. And but it all started out with that one voice saying, you're going to stain fences, and me listening to it.
Now, when did you decide that you were going to go all in? Like you discovered it works and you're starting to scale. What decisions did you make?
I think I just remember, I told you my story earlier, growing up not hard, but just growing up doing hard work. We would work 6 or 7 days a week. We would work till 10, 11 o'clock at night. I remember coming home. I remember one specific place we were doing a fence job in Ashland City, and we came home at 10 or 11 o'clock on Sunday night just from the job because we had to get it done. And I had to go to school the next day, or maybe it was summer. I don't remember, but I remember 11 o'clock Sunday night, 1993 Ford F-150 coming home, me sitting in the middle beside another guy. And it was just, that was what we did. So when I started the stain business alongside, I'm working full time in the fence business, staining on the side. I would fence during the day, do that job. Then I'd go stain in the evenings. I'd stain on the weekends. I didn't care. I didn't mind putting in 100 hours a week. It was, but I think when I got to that point where I was putting in a lot of hours, I thought I could make more money in an afternoon than I can make all week in the fence company. So I knew I should burn the boats. And I guess around 2015, it was just finally, I just told my parents, hey, this is the day I'm done. I'm going full time. I gave them a 6-month warning and off I went. And it was never that was the burn the boats moment. And then from there on, it was just, I don't want to say lots of shiny things, but for me, it was always kind of like new ideas, new growth, new things. We stain fences and decks. We should make our own stains. Well, we clean fences and decks. The whole industry was using bleach to clean fences and decks at that time. But I knew bleach was really hard on the grass. It was hard on your skin. It was hard on the wood. That's what you make paper with. It breaks the wood down. And so we looked into and so we started making our own cleaning chemicals for cleaning fences and decks that were safer. And then a lot of people said, hey, we want to buy your products. So we started selling the products. We started selling a few accompanying tools that go with it. And then as we're trying to grow and scale our business, we're calling a lot of fence companies, fence builders, and saying, hey, you should stain fences. This is a great thing. It can be a great, extra revenue builder for your business. And they'd just say, hey, we're not interested. Well, we said, well, what if we sold you fence material that's already stained? They said, well, we'd love that. We'll buy that. That makes us different in our market. It's easier. And it's an incredible thing when you see a fence go up that's already brown or black or gray or something. It's an option people don't know they have, but when they figure it out, they go for it. So we just did, we're doing that, and now we're franchising our service business. So everything we've done has really kind of created an ecosystem. One business feeds the other, and I try to stick within that.
And what is your role
sphere?
What is your unique ability in your business?
I think I guess on paper, if anybody were to ask what I do, they would say, well, he's the founder and CEO. I kind of like the title founder a little better. CEO to me sounds prestigious, and a lot of people I think just make it something that it's not. But I guess my role is technically is the CEO, and I think every year I kind of go on a different mission. Like 2 years ago, we built a facility. Last year, my goal was really hiring out a team. This year, we're at a level to where to get to the next level, we've got to put some more foundational things in. And so I just kind of in my mind every year have sort of a theme, and I build towards that theme. And so this year it's foundational, which will include probably some strategic hires, but also really solidifying processes. And we've got a lot of processes, but what I'm finding out is as I grow, the process, at this level maybe won't get you to that level. And so, so my day to day is trying to find out what the bottleneck is and work on it, and really work hard on not getting sucked into things that I like to do. I guess if you ask me what my unique ability is, I can call 1,000 people a week, and I can talk to them, and I can sell stuff. I can make deals happen, and I connect people. I'm just really good at connecting people. And a lot of times I've sold things, made a lot of revenue by, hey, you should know this guy, just being a connector. And, but I don't get to do that a whole lot anymore. And so I'm working on getting unchained from the desk and being able to go back to doing what I like to do best, but not too much, if that makes sense, because I am in that CEO spot. So right now it's a whole lot of learning,
Yeah, and I've seen some of your videos, and I can tell that you're really passionate about helping your clients be successful. It gives you a little sense of. Does it give you a sense of meaning to helping someone else, like maybe earlier in their business?
When I started my stain company, I made $28,000 a year. I had a mortgage, I had a car payment, and I had one child. I guess I had one kid, and maybe a second one on the way. And our dream, my wife made $12 an hour. So we live in small town Tennessee. We are, we're nobodies, right? But we wanted her to stay home. We wanted to homeschool our kids, and we wanted to own a farm. We wanted not necessarily to be farmers, but we wanted land, right? We wanted a place, our own little haven. And how do you ever get that making what we were making? We weren't making anything. And so when we started staining, it gave us the ability. She came home. We wound up getting a farm. We bought 110 acres and a brick house when we were like 25. And we were very blessed. There were a lot of things that happened to make that possible, but we bought it. And then now we're still, she stays home. She's very strategic in the business from time to time. Crazy thing I learned was my wife is one heck of an operator of a high level business. And, but we really have to work on pulling her back, because her main focus, she wants to spend time with the kids. That's what she wants. But she loves to operate too. So it's a tough thing sometimes, but, I sort of started rambling and lost where I was going with this. But the reason, I remember your question now, the reason that I'm so passionate about helping others is because it changed my life. I went from a place of, I don't know anything. I don't know how to scale a business. I know that I'm more. I know that I'm capable. I know that I'm smart. I know that I'm not afraid of hard work. My granddad used to say, he's not afraid of hard work. He'll sleep right beside of it. And so, but I'm not afraid of doing the work. I just need to know what to do. And so I just spent all this time trying it, working, focusing, learning, reading books, joining groups like EO, joining different things. And it's changed my life. It's made my life just something that I'm so grateful for. And so I figure if we can help others get to that point, it's a good thing. It's a great thing. And so I would love to own everything and just expand. But I think it would be even better to like help people change their life and their family tree, give people purpose and meaning, especially those people that don't. I mean, everyone's different. I knew that I had to get around the right people. I knew that I had to learn. Some people just don't know that. And so if I can help people realize that and then be a part of what gets them to that next level, I think that's a big thing. And obviously, without saying, it goes without saying that if our customers are successful, we're successful too. But there is a deeper meaning to their success for me because it happened to me. We've got a guy here in Nashville who started, he started staining fences. We helped him along the way. And I don't want to act like we did all the work for him because we didn't. He was a hard worker, did a lot of work, but his wife stays home and now he owns a freaking Tesla, And so seeing that change, people go from wanting to make a difference in their life to finding some sort of significance.
Well, I think you also
huge.
Place yourself in a good position in your market where you can be an inspiration for someone that's starting their own business, using your tools, but you're also helping them what to do next. How do I find customers? How do I manage a crew? How do I do a job and actually make money with the job and price the job? And you're helping people do this.
Yeah. And I think a rising tide raises all ships. So that's kind of the idea. I think if you got a person in each market, I mean, it's in every industry. There's someone who goes out and does things differently than others. Maybe they charge more, maybe they offer something others don't. And then other people begin to follow. They go, wow, he's charging, X, he's charging this much. Well, we can charge just a little bit less and get, and maybe get some work. And I think that's what happens. That rising tide raises all ships, and that's a good thing. And so I don't mind being that person to go into every market and try to be the biggest. It's not that I have to do it, but if I can help others go into different markets and be the big dog there, I think it's a great thing because it's gonna. If we build one guy's business huge in a market, like 20 other guys are gonna kind of follow and ride that wave. So I think by helping people like that, it's a really big impact.
And I think what you're adding more value, to the relationship. You're not just selling stain. You could be selling a system.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the franchise idea. We're hoping to build like a really dream team of stain people around the country.
Mm.
Yeah.
And how do you see the business panning out in the next 10 years? What like in your ideal world, what's in 10 years look like?
Well, I think that I have a love for educating people. Not that but I can only educate so much because I only know so much. I think maybe one day I will be a part of something bigger that helps normal people learn not so normal skills that they might need to know to go places in life that they wouldn't have, like if you ever go like to Camden, New Jersey. I went to Camden, New Jersey on a business trip once. We went to Philly and the guys from Philly said, if you want the best Philly cheesesteak, you got to go to New Jersey. And I thought, well, this is crazy. So we go to this place called Donkey's and they got a big donkey out front, a fake donkey. And they serve a round Philly cheesesteak and it's a hole in the wall. It's in Camden, New Jersey, and it is a rough place. And I'm looking at the people in this town, and it's mostly minorities. And I'm just looking around and I'm like, how do you grow up here and not be on drugs? How do you not be in prostitution? How do you not fall into all of those things that are here waiting to suck you in? And then how do you get away? How do you even afford enough money to move to anywhere? And I'm thinking, man, if we could help people that are there get out of that would be a big thing. That would be good. And doing it in person is great, but if we could find a way to do it digitally or virtually, instead of helping 100 people, we could help 100,000 or 100 million or 1 billion people. And so I think one day I'm perfectly content and happy. I think running the stain business and growing this little portfolio of companies we have and maybe growing it a little bit. But I also think I'm also open to the idea of something bigger. But it's just not come to fruition yet. The clear vision's not come there yet. But I think that's I've got a passion for that. And I've really built my business with people. There was a certain point along the way I started bringing in really high level people, experience, older people than me, and strong people, high payroll, but big results, right? And there was a certain point where I said, okay, let's just pretend we're starting a school here, and every person here has to be a teacher in our school. And so it changed my mindset of hiring people, because there's certain people that are like really high level operators, but they're toxic. Like, this guy can sell $1 billion worth of product, but you would never have him around kids, right? Teaching. And so now I'm looking for people that have a teacher's heart, who have that ability and spirit of, they could be a teacher for children or for adults. And, but they're high level operators in my business, because I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I know that maybe one day we'll do something educational, and we do education, that's how we sell our products, but maybe we'll do something more with education. And if something happens, if some big company comes and wants to buy us out, then I'll have the team that will hopefully stick with me and pivot right over into education.
That's really interesting. I've had these very similar desires in the things that I'm working on. Mm-hmm. And I felt early on the same kind of thing. My dad was a music teacher, and I really admired his ability to connect with kids and teach. And then I started doing teaching in my own workplace, with my new hires. And, I found that gift there, which I enjoyed. And now that I sold the business, I'm like spending more time, doing that for other people. And I think generally, most companies don't have culture, and culture always starts with the visionary who has a vision, who is actually living by example, right? And how did you build culture in your company?
Well, we started out as a merry band of misfits. So when I started out, I got the people I could get. We're in a small town. I've had guys that were, just, for lack of a better term, they were just rough guys, coming to work for us, and maybe on the service side, we've all seen service guys that for different companies that are pretty rough looking. I've had some, I didn't have guys that looked like they were methed out or anything, but I definitely had some rough and tumble guys working with us early on. And then as we got basically a miniature stain factory, I had people working, and we had SOPs and things, but they were, I guess, from the wrong side of the tracks. They were the people that maybe had suffered with addiction before, or maybe they like to gamble, and they could keep it together most of the time, but every once in a while they wouldn't show up to work, And with those people, I did the same things that I do now as far as culture goes. I did a Monday morning meeting every Monday. I tried Fridays. I tried Mondays. I stuck with Monday morning, the whole company together. My company's a little different. We're Christians. And so we we start off with a simple Bible study, takes a few minutes, and then we would go around, and we've experimented with lots of different things. But where we're at now is basically we have announcements, any company announcements, wins and great things. And then I will do I guess for lack of a better term, a speech. Basically, I'll prepare for this. Every Monday I'm there, and I'm going to talk. Yesterday I talked about basically goal setting. And in our office, we have an office, and we have these big glass windows that look out into our manufacturing area. And about 5 years ago, I drew that on paper. And I wanted glass windows to look into our manufacturing space, because most manufacturing plants, you can't see into them, and they're nasty and they're dirty. And I knew that if I had glass windows, that it would be neat, because you'd be forced to keep it neat, because everybody can see it. All your customers walk in. It's like going to the Smith Brothers car wash. You can watch the car going through the glass windows. And that's exactly what we have. And I basically explained to everybody that just a few years ago, I was making this stain by myself without electricity in basically a shed behind my house on that farm that I had, a sheep shed. I was a sheep farmer too. And I wasn't a very good one, but I tried. And so I would walk out in the morning, and 100 sheep would pop their head up, and they'd run out of this shed. And then there were my barrels and my generator and my tote of oil and things. And I would get in there and I'd mix and we'd make our stain. And then we'd go take that stain we made this morning, we go put it on people's fences in Nashville. And I explained to people that, it wasn't very long ago I was doing this in a shed and drawing pictures of these glass windows. And I talked about several other examples. And I said, I asked everybody, hey, what goals do you have? I had everybody ask their goals. I asked them, do they write them down? How often? And people are like, we write them down once a quarter. And I said, well, you need to write them down once in the morning, once at night. That's what you should do if you really want to push these. And then marketing director said, well, and she's a hard charger, high dominant personality, just like me. She said, well, I found myself, and she's in her 50s. She said, I have to find new goals because I achieved my goals. She set some pretty big and lofty goals. I think one of them was to pay it for it herself, a full scholarship to someone, which she did last year. And she said, I write my goals down 3 times in the morning, 6 times at lunch, and 9 times at night. And I thought, holy cow.
It's a whole new level.
Yeah, that's a whole new level. But obviously the results speak, right? So she's hit all of her life goals. And so she's finding herself having to rebuild and a new set of goals. But we'll do the goals. And then every week I have a different department head. Like we met in manufacturing yesterday. Last Monday, we were in our warehouse, shipping and receiving warehouse. I'll just have the person who's in charge of the area, hey, give us a tour. Show us everything. Tell us what everything is. Show us what's dangerous here. Show us where we need to stand, where we don't need to stand. Anything unique and do that. And then that's kind of our Monday morning meeting ritual. And then we have Operation Team First, which is Fridays, the first Friday of the month. And we come in, we cook breakfast. The whole team cooks breakfast. We've got one of those big flat grills. And we'll eat. We'll just make friends, have fun. And it's like a big family. And then we'll do awards. I have an executive team give out awards, which we have these big challenge coins. And they're kind of I don't want to say generic, but they're sort of generic because there's only like 6 or 8 of them that we give out for you've mastered a skill, you've been a great multitasker, you've been a great leader, something like that, creativity. We'll give out these challenge coins, and then we'll award a golden broom, which is I think a lot of factories do that. Whoever's got the neatest, cleanest area, it's just an award for that, saying thank you. We acknowledge that you've kept your space very clean and tidy. Thank you for that. And then employee of the month, and they all get like a gift card, and employee of the month gets a special parking space and little stuff like that. And that's kind of it. We'll do quarterly planning sessions, and if executive team's doing a quarterly planning session and we provide lunch, the whole team will eat the lunch. And I think some of that stuff, some people might say it'll make your team soft or you're buying too many lunches. And I feel like that sometimes. I go, oh, this is, the 3rd lunch this month. It's adding up. But I think building the strong team is important. And, but also compiling or putting that with having those teacher-minded people, those people that you would have as teachers in a school. And then we have core values and leadership principles in the business, and we run off of that. And so,
I think, you're touching on, I think, an opportunity for a lot of entrepreneurs. Part of this opportunity for us to teach is because I'm learning. Like when I teach, I learn. And that's why I do these little workshops and I bring people together and I teach these concepts because I'm trying to embody them, and it helps me learn by teaching and, passing that to our employees who I think if we give them another reason to be at that particular job, say if they are growing personally, while they're growing professionally, it feels like another reason to stay. Otherwise, they're just going through this motion of just doing the same thing repetitive and not having any growth that they can see and then feeling stagnant. And I think that's when people start to.
I agree with you. I did my talk about goal setting and asked for everyone what their goal was this year. And some people had good ones and some people had, different goals. But I said, hey, when I gave examples, do you want to work at Tesla? Is that a goal? And if somebody in my company wanted to work at Tesla, I got to find out why. right? And maybe a guy who's on a production line for us wants to work at Tesla because at home he's like some kind of crazy computer engineer and he's doing something. I want to find out about that. How can we use you and your strength?
Yeah.
You know, maybe you build AI robot learning software or something. I don't know. But part of the reason was I wanted to extract that out of people and get them to work towards their strengths, and then also give them like purpose and something to look forward to, and then create that culture of wins amongst the team. You know, somebody, so-and-so won, this person won, this person's almost about to win. And I want to build that momentum in the team, and we'll see where it takes us.
Awesome. Well, dude, thanks for joining me. It's Sweaty Goals. It's time for breakfast.
Cool, man.
Let's do it.
Sounds good.